you have to be connected to it. You have to feel it for it to be meaningful. So find the things that are meaningful and find the things in Judaism that speak to you and you connect to. And that's where the light is.
If you heard what I heard, this podcast shares the powerful stories of Holocaust survivors, told by their grandchildren, the last generation to ever hear Holocaust survivor stories firsthand. So join me as we listen, learn, and remember. Together, we can make sure the world will never forget so that it never happens again. Today, I'm honored to be here with If You Heard What I Heard interviewee, lifestyle influencer, and mom of three, Adina Schlass, who shares the story of her grandfather, Sam Most, for If You Heard What I Heard. Adina dedicates her voice to celebrating the best of Jewish life through food, culture, and traditions, and we're so lucky to have her as part of our If You Heard What I Heard family. Welcome, Adina.
Thank you for having me. That was such a nice introduction.
I meant every word.
Thank you. That's really nice.
It's so true. I look up to you so much with everything that you're building and everything you've built with, your Instagram. I tell you all the time that I look at your Shabbat chicken and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. I still get like a little intimidated, but I'm like, I can do it.
I think one day you're going to come to me for Shabbat. I'm going to cook for you.
Oh,
to do that.
That's like music to my ears. I'll be there next week. Thanks. Sign me up. No, I love following along. I mean, all of your recipes and just the way you present everything, the way you put everything together is so beautiful. And it's like done with so much Jewish intention. It's so sweet.
Oh, that's so nice. I love hearing that because I think if I look back to prior to October 7th or 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I was doing so much lifestyle and I was doing so much food and recipes and like kind of teaching people like how to cook. And I think like if I would think back like where the shift has happened for me is I went into like an intentional space of like, how does food define our culture and how do we connect over food and the traditions that like unite us and nourish us. And I think for me, that shift was obviously because of October 7th, but also being the grandchild of a Holocaust survivor. And like, I know we talk about this a lot, like how deeply embedded our Jewish identity is and being able to celebrate that on a social media platform and take like my creativity and all those things and kind of combine it feels really meaningful for me. And I love like the shift that's happened. And I so appreciate that you see it. Like we put stuff out all the time, right? You never know what's in, like what the interpretation is or what's perceived on the other side. So I think for people to know that and for you to say that you feel it, like I'm doing exactly like what I want, like what I'm meant to.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so much inspiration that I take from like, especially around the Jewish holidays. Like I always look at your content and I'm like, okay, how can I set the table and what recipes am I making? And, just how little things come together.
Yeah. And, I think social media is so like, there is just you're inundated with so much aesthetic stuff, right? And everything feels like perfected and everything feels like unattainable. And I think that for us, it's more than just like setting a table. It's our culture and it's our traditions and it's the things that we're passing on to our kids. And I feel like when we get to layer our like creative space with meaning, like that's when the narrative comes through. Like that's when it's felt,
So how much of that do you think is influenced by your grandfather, your Holocaust survivor grandfather?
I want to say a lot. Okay, so the interview that we did, right? We talk about like when October 7th happened, how we had this like innate desire. It didn't even feel like a choice. Like we had to stand up. It was like, no way you're going to silence me. No way I'm going to like, go like sheep to and I think because of that, this like desire to stand up and be heard and not be silenced, like pushes me into that space of advocacy and using my social media platform to beautify what Judaism is and what traditions are and how much meaning and love like that's brought to our life, So for sure,
it's
yeah.
so beautiful. I love that. And it's such a meaningful thing as the granddaughter of a Holocaust survivor to stand up and say, we're here, we're not going anywhere. And look, I'm going to show you how beautiful and cool it is to be Jewish.
Yeah, it's beautiful and cool. Shabbat is so cool, girl. It's so
Yeah.
crazy because I have friends, like people that haven't been religious like most of their lives, and they're telling me that like they turn their phones off on Shabbat, so if you look out into, you know, like a lot of like the healing space and like a lot of people in the secular world, they're like, oh, switch off, connect with your friends, get a day of like you're not on your phone. And we have these things built in for us. We have this like blueprint of how to create more meaning in our life and how to like be present. It was given to us 3,000 years ago, and it's the most beautiful thing. And I feel like seeing that and kind of relearning like what Shabbat is and how we can make it meaningful to our own lives. Yeah, is really nice. And I love people message me all the time like, I never used to do Shabbat, but I love cooking now for my family. And I love when my house smells of chicken soup. Like all these little things that are part and parcel of building our memory and connection, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like you talk about this blueprint of thousands of years, but I feel like for you more personally, and we talk about this in your interview too, it is your grandfather because you saw how he didn't let anything keep him from living his life.
Mm. Yeah, for sure. And I also think, yeah, I guess we did talk about this a lot, like this blueprint of resilience and this blueprint of like really pushing to live like the most authentic, biggest life that you can, like constantly pushing forward, constantly trying to like get to the best version of yourself. Yeah, I thought about this a lot after our interview, like that their resilience and drive to live life to the fullest is something that like has been passed down. You know, it's like we saw it firsthand and it stayed with us.
I think it's something really unique about being Jewish that I hope other cultures look at from us and can take into their own is about resilience, right? That like we don't play victim. We're like,
Mm.
okay, we're going to get up and keep going. And I know that there's been since October 7th this sort of shift in like how can we raise the next generation of warriors? Like we need to be stronger and tougher. But I think we are very strong as a people, and I think we're tough in different ways. Like I think that there's this call to like how can we be more physically tough as a people? But I actually think our superpower is our resilience.
We for sure, like we are so mentally that just when you said we're not victims, that's something that is so like deeply embedded even in my psyche just because of my grandfather and what he went through. He saw the worst of mankind. He was never bitter. He was never angry. He never blamed the Germans. Like it's funny, like my dad, I think like he would buy a German car. My grandfather loved German cars. Like he just liked German cars. That's what he was gonna do. He didn't give a shit. He's like, you know what? I don't feel anger. Like, and I think that the ability to let go and take, you know, control of your own life and not blame others. He was never an angry person. He never held on to hate. That's so that's fascinating to me. Like to and I see that in us, by the way. The Jewish people,
Totally.
even now till today, we're constantly, you know, I'm saying the week that with the Bebus kids, like how
Ugh,
much we were all so broken from that. And then we go and we try to look for the light, or we look for the positivity, or we try to always find hope. I think that's part of like the Jewish culture and character of who we are, like
yeah.
constantly trying to find the light.
Yeah. 1000%. 1000%. And I think it's what makes it, in turn, that looking for the light makes us strong because
Yeah.
it's like nothing's going to break us,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
I see
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I see that so much. I think all these things we kind of knew as kids, or we experienced it through our grandparents, but I don't think we ever felt it at play until October 7th. And that's probably the big shift that happened, especially for Holocaust, like grandchildren of Holocaust survivors, and how we saw that like all these things that we knew were a part of us in a unspoken way, it played out like right in front of us. Like the
Yeah.
resilience and finding the light and constantly look like that's what I feel like I've tapped into after October 7th, you know?
Totally. Well, and it's interesting because we got in touch after October 7th about you sharing your interview, and there was like zero hesitation. You were like, yes, I'm doing this no matter what. And you were all in about it. And I love that. But what was it about sharing his story that for you is so important today? Like, why was it so important for you to share his story with us?
I think it's layered for sure, but off the bat, it just goes into like this like thing of we cannot stay silent. Like this inner drive of I will scream on the rooftops and shout, and no one will silence me. And no one, I'm saying with all the anti-Semitism and everything that was going on, like it was so obvious to me, like it's our responsibility to stand up and it's our responsibility to tap into our own Jewish identity and stand up loud and proud. That feels so clear to me. So anything that lends itself to that or helps with that, I'm there. Like sign me up. I'm flying an Israeli flag from my car. I'm wearing Magen David's, like whatever I need to do. It's so crazy to me. Like I never understood this idea of people like dying because they're Jewish. Like we grew up with Holocaust grandparents and like, they were literally taken to the gas chambers because they were Jewish. And we would think about, oh my gosh, it's so crazy. Like, but now I think about it and I'm like, I will die a Jew. There's
100%.
no question in my mind that if somebody would come up to me and like tell me that I had to go or something, that it seems so obvious to me. I don't think we had that like growing up. Like I never felt that way before. There is such a deep understanding and love that has now come from October 7th for our own Judaism. I think it's a beautiful thing. I think that in some way we get handed these struggles or whatever it is almost to like help amplify where we want to be. And maybe that's what it was for you, that like
Yes.
you need these moments to be like to redefine who you are, you know?
Yeah, it's almost when you're growing up and you're like raised in the tradition, you're like, yeah, this is like part of who I am. And you like kind of don't question it. Right.
Yeah.
And it's not like I questioned it with this, but it was like if I had the choice to be Jewish, which I don't feel like I do because it's so in me, it's like as natural as breathing, right? Like or your skin or whatever.
Yeah.
It just is.
Mm.
But it when I say it rocked me, it rocked me to choose Judaism too. In
Yeah.
addition to like it's like I choose this, you know?
It's so beautiful to have an experience like that as an adult. In some way, I think that collectively as a Jewish people, and maybe it's a big thing to say, but I think people have rechosen the Judaism after October 7th.
Yes.
I think collectively as a nation and as a group of people have in some way had like the experience of you with the being or your friend who was Christian.
Yeah.
We were faced with another choice to be like, who are you? Who are you? And what is deep in your soul? And what are you going to choose? And I think collectively, everyone chose their Judaism again. And it's so, yeah, we all grew up Jewish. I mean, I grew up religious and we were Jewish, but was it an intentional choice? I don't know. Like it was definitely part of who I was. I loved my Judaism, but now it feels like defining and feels like deep and it feels like intentional. And I think we're all stepping into our Judaism in a very different way post October 7th than any of us have grown up with.
So within that sort of discovery for yourself now, like post October 7th, is there something that you did learn or discover about your connection to Judaism that you didn't have before? I mean, I know you said that like that it's more fierce for you, but I'm just curious if, what else has come up for you
I
since
think I was
October
always a
7th?
proud Jew. Like I was always very proud. You can't grow up with a grandparent. Like my grandfather is a Holocaust survivor, but he was a big person who helped build like the Jewish community in Sydney. He was involved in education. He gave money to Israel. He was involved in Israeli politics. He was good friends with Menachem Begin. He was very involved in Tel Aviv University. He was someone that like stood in his Judaism and Jewish identity in a very deep, like profound way. So I definitely grew up with that. I think for me, the shift was being loud about it. Like being loud and proud and overt and obvious, like in every possible way. I think maybe that was a shift.
Right.
And standing in it. I think also like doing advocacy work and doing stuff for Israel, like I have a lot more opportunity to stand in it. And I find that work to be like so meaningful for me. So that was probably more of a shift, like just the actionable nature of things that I was doing after October 7th. And then I think another big thing for me, it was October 7th for sure that did this, but I think also just my own journey in my own personal life was like leaning into God and having this like new kind of relationship with him and like what and how that plays into my Judaism. I think for me, it was, I guess I want to say like more culturally Jewish and proud. And I think for me, like seeing things play out the way they have in October 7th and also my own life, like I've leaned into Hashem and I feel like he plays a really big part in my Judaism now than it did before. So I would, yeah, there's definitely more of like a spiritual like undertone. That there was, I'll tell you something.
Yeah.
October 7th, there was a boy, I'm sure everyone remembers this video. He was driving to the Nova Festival and he was singing a part of the Moedani prayer, Elohai Neshama. And the idea is that, I'm not sure if you remember. Do you remember this?
I don't think I do.
I think Yehuda Bacha. And he was singing, and I watched this video, and he's driving to the Nova Festival, and he says, I hope I'm getting this correct, God, you have returned your soul to me, my soul to me. So the Moedani prayer, like, thank you for returning my soul to me. And in the time where I'm not good, like, when you take my soul back, I will be with you. I don't remember the exact, like, translations. So I don't want to get it wrong. It's part of the Moedani prayer. And he was killed. He was murdered at Nova. And when he's singing this song about his soul being returned, he says it with so much faith and love. Like you could just watch the video, you just like, and it profoundly impacted me. And I started praying every day. I say Moda'ani, like I was always into gratitude. I always woke up with gratitude. I'm like, we actually have a prayer that helps us get out of bed every day and thank God for like a beautiful day. And like, how lucky are we that we have these like prayers and things in our culture and our Judaism that we get to tap into. So I pray, I say Moda'ani every single day now. I was never a big person who prayed. And that's something also that's like shifted for me.
Wow. Yeah, I think you're right. October 7th did wake a lot of us up to, like our grandparents used to say, never again, never again. And it's like, we're living that now.
Yeah.
Well,
and you feel it so much.
Yeah.
Sometimes you watch the news and you're just like, what is happening? Like, what's happening? Like I was talking to my friend the other day, and we're like, I hosted a really big Nova Shabbat. Thank you, Caroline, for the connect.
Yeah.
So
I want to talk about that too.
This is a good segue.
Yeah.
But I was very privileged and honored to get to know the Nova family who were part of the Nova exhibit when they were here in Miami, and I hosted 2 Shabbat dinners with them, and I got to host some of the survivors of Nova and hostage families. And one of the boys, his brother is still a hostage in Gaza, and he was saying like his brother's like not on the list, and I was standing there and I'm like, one saying their brother's not on the list, one person's brother passed away. And I'm standing there, I'm like, I feel like we're living in an alternate reality. This feels like a bad version of the Hunger Games. Like one's on the list, one's not on the list. We open our phones for 6 weeks straight on a Saturday night, and we were watching videos of families being reunited. Like, what is happening? Like, and in some ways we started getting like used to it. And then like you take a step back and you're just like, this is crazy. Like,
it's crazy.
This is a crazy life that we're living in. Like, we're seeing out like the price of our Judaism playing out. Of course, we're going to step into it. Like, of course, we're going to lean into it and love it in every way possible because we're dying for it. We're literally dying for it.
Yeah.
His brother's name, this boy, Eli, it's his brother, Eviatar, is a hostage in Gaza. He actually was the video that came out of the 2 boys in the van who were forced to witness the thing and were crying.
Oh my God.
Brother, Eviatar and his friend Guy. And I pray that God will bring them home soon.
Yeah, amen.
Yeah,
amen.
Just crazy. It's crazy life.
What, like, in hosting those Shabbat dinners with Nova and with the Nova exhibit and meeting, former hostages and their families, What was that like as the granddaughter of a Holocaust survivor? You know and understand, like, your grandfather was in camp after camp after camp, and went through the worst of the worst and was sick and was beaten and went through hell. So, like, what was that like for you from that perspective as a 3G, as a granddaughter of Holocaust survivor?
So I think I find myself when I'm in these moments of giving back to community or doing this kind of work, I find myself completely aligned. I find myself like, this feels like my soul's mission. Like, I feel like I was born for this. I feel like I'm exactly where God wants me to be. I feel like giving back to the Jewish community in that way feels like my mission in life. Like, that's what I feel. And maybe it sounds crazy, but like, I think about my Saba and I think about him like looking down and like, I feel like he would be so proud, and it feels healing. It feels healing and full circle. And oh my God, this is so crazy, Caroline. So I had the Friday night, and by the way, I feel this because as I'm talking to these hostage families,
Yeah.
they're telling me things. I'm thinking of like my grandfather who came out, who had nobody, and no one was there for him, and no one was making Shabbat for him. And in that way, it's full circle healing, like I always tell you this, like there are things that like heal generational trauma and like holds us in a certain way. And I think giving back to community and standing up and doing all this stuff, that's what does it for me. It feeds my
100%.
soul. Like I feel it. I know it. Like I just, yeah.
100%.
Crazy story. So we had the second Shabbat for Nova. I hosted 55 people, and we invited people to come for dessert after because we didn't fit everyone for the whole dinner. And a lot of people came after. It must have been like, I don't know, like 80, 90 people on my roof. And I go up to introduce myself. Someone walked in, and I always go and say hello and welcome them. I'm usually a good host. And
I would imagine you're like the best host.
and this
They're
girl
so like welcoming and like,
oh, it's so nice.
warm.
Yeah, it's all about good energy. So this girl comes up. So I say hello to this girl, and she's like, "What's your name?" I'm like, "Adina." She goes, "No, what's your last name?" I said, "Schlass." She goes, "No. What's your maiden name?" I'm like, "Moss." She's like, "Adina, I'm Oscar Hiller's granddaughter."
Stop it.
So yeah. Okay,
No,
anyone out there watching this? It's like
I just fell off my chair. Like, wait. So for those listening, if you haven't watched Adina's interview, you have to watch her interview now after hearing that. Like, I can't. I just got chills all over. So Oscar is the boy who saved Adina's grandfather's life in the camps. Like, go watch Adina's interview immediately.
like, and it's so crazy. And she said that. I've never met her before. I know I met her obviously I met Oscar multiple times, and I met her mom and I met the family, but I just had never met her. And we embraced each other, like we hugged each other, and everyone, there's a group around us, and everyone's like, what's going on? Like what is happening? And we literally were hugging each other. I was like, like I was beaming. I couldn't believe it. I was like, it was so special. And then everyone's around us, and I tell everyone, like, guys, you don't even know, like her grandfather saved my grandfather in the Holocaust. And it was, we were shared the story. And it's so, and as we're standing there, we all talk about how we're literally hearing from these hostage families, and we're hearing from Nova families. And I'm standing there telling the story of my grandfather who survived the Holocaust because of her grandfather who saved him. And I said, guys, this is our Judaism. This is our story. We are standing in the middle of history. And in the same way that me and her are standing on this rooftop and we survived and our grandfathers were saved, it's the same for them. And this is the same resilience. It's just repeating itself. And it's like, this is our blueprint. Like, this is who we are as a Jewish people. And it was so I don't know, it was really like full circle, crazy moment. And it was so beautiful. Yeah, isn't that wild?
Well, that's crazy.
So
So you must have hugged her like she was your family, because I
oh,
feel
no,
like
no.
that connection is like
I'm like, "Guys, you don't even know, like, this is, like, my sister." We were, like,
yes.
hugging, we hugged multiple times, and I even told them, I said, "Just so you guys understand the role her grandfather plays in our life till today, my sister named her baby after her grandfather." Like, I was
Yeah.
telling everyone around, and, like,
Yeah.
we have grandchildren in our family named Oscar because that's who he was for us.
Oh, oh my God. Everyone listening, listen to Adina's interview. Like, you have to hear this story. It's like absolutely insane. And I can't believe that that happened. It must have been like just unbelievable. So now you guys are in touch. You like
Now we're in
exchanging
touch. She
information.
lives in New York. She happens to have been here just for the weekend. Yeah, she missed her recently.
Well, she should come to our Matisyahu concert.
Yeah, I should definitely tell her about it. Maybe you should interview her as one of the interviews,
I
like,
know.
do the story. Yeah, it'd be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Um,
That's so crazy.
isn't that crazy?
I just can't believe, oh my gosh, what a moment that must have been for you.
Yeah, it was honestly, like, anytime my sister's also close with her mother. Anytime, like, our families, like, paths cross, we are so we are, like, we feel like they're so a part of us, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. Wait, so talking about Nova, so for those listening who don't know, you should check it out if you have a chance. The Nova exhibit is an incredible opportunity to really like immerse yourself in what happened to our people on October 7th, specifically to these kids who were at this Nova rave, just having a peaceful concert, just having like enjoying these concerts and enjoying this festival, and were brutally murdered for no other reason than they were in Israel and they're Jewish. And the Nova exhibit was made possible in large part from Scott Scooter Braun, who is one of our, if you heard what I heard, interviewees. And when I heard that Nova was coming to Miami, I immediately got in touch with Adina and I got in touch with Josh at Nova. And I said, you guys have to connect. And I'm so happy it worked out.
Yeah. And that's, like, the beauty of also being part of our Jewish community,
Yeah.
like, the way everything is so interconnected, like, that our story and our interview, and then you hooking up with that, and, like, how beautiful all these experiences have been for me. Like, we're very lucky. We're very, like, blessed people. That's what it feels like.
Specifically with the Nova exhibit, it's interesting because, like, for you as the granddaughter of a Holocaust survivor, it was like an immediate, like, yes, of course I'm going to go to Nova. Like, I think regardless, like, just being Jewish, like, you feel a pull and a connection there. But I think it's really interesting that Scott, who's also one of our interviewees and obviously, brought the Nova exhibit to life, like, I think there's something, I mean, I obviously can't speak for him, but like, I do think that there's something there about, look, we're descended from Holocaust survivors. So we know that pain and we know that discrimination against our people because we saw it in our grandparents. We saw what we heard these stories.
And then subsequently from that, we have a push to do everything possible to make sure that it doesn't happen again. I think
Yes,
I think we feel a heavy responsibility on our shoulders to do.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly felt that when the Nova exhibit was in LA and I got in touch with Josh and I said, whatever you need, whatever we can do, we're behind you. Like,
Yeah.
as the grandchildren, as an organization that stands for never again
Yeah.
and stands for keeping, represents the grandchildren of Holocaust survivors,
Yeah.
to do something to support 10/7 survivors, like, all
Yeah.
in.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I love that.
No, but I feel like that's like exactly what you did with your involvement with Nova too, you know?
Yeah.
You
Like
know so much about that.
it's so obvious to me. If you ask me, how like how can we do it? Like, I'm like, it's so obvious to me. Like, I
Yeah.
don't I don't want to be doing anything. Like, this is it. This is it for me.
Yeah.
And it's not effort. They always say that, by the way. Like, if your soul is aligned and you're doing, like, the right, like, it won't be difficult for you. It will
Yes.
rejuvenate you. And that's how you know you're exactly where you're meant to be. This work rejuvenates me. It feels healing and it feels meaningful and it feeds me. Like, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, with so much of your work, which it's weird to me to even call it work for you because I feel like you love what you do so
I
much. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
Right? Is it weird for me to say? So with your
I
work,
saw like there's two parts of it for me. Like I have like my charity and advocacy work that I like do a lot and I love. And then I have like my social media platform. And on there, I'm shifting more towards like, beautifying like what Jewish culture is and like how it can connect us and nourish us and all of our traditions and all of that. So like it's like, yeah, one is like definitely work, like influencer, social media, that's work. And then there's like the charity stuff. I love all of it. Yeah.
yeah, it's weird for me to even call like the influencer stuff for you work because I feel like it's so like such a representation of you.
Yeah, that's
You
really nice.
know?
It is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true. So, like, with the work that you do in, making Judaism, like, showing us how the traditions and the holidays and celebrating Judaism can be so cool and beautiful, what's important for all of us to keep in mind? Like, what's, like, sort of the influencer lifestyle tip you can give all of us?
I want to say find the things that are meaningful for you. If it's a Shabbat dinner, if it's like, I don't know, connecting with friends or doing like a holiday thing, find something in Judaism that speaks to you because you have to be connected to it. You have to feel it for it to be meaningful. So find the things that are meaningful and find the things in Judaism that speak to you and you connect to. And that's where the light is. Like that's where you'll connect to your Judaism. And something that like I think for me Shabbat is like close to my heart. Like I love it so much. I think I love hosting. I love connecting with people. So yeah, find the things that speak to you.
Okay, so with that, so Shabbat's coming up this week, comes every week, every Friday. So what's on the menu this week? What are you making?
I think I'm going out to like a gala dinner this week.
Oh,
But even when I go out every Friday, there is always soup on my fire. There is always sourdough. I bake bread every week. I
yum.
never actually did that. I'm not a baker. I hate baking. Like it's just not.
Really?
I hate it. I'm more of like a cook.
Yeah.
And since October 7th, I wanted something that felt meaningful and I wanted to take something else on. And I found that it was such a grounding experience to firstly take something on in a creative space and obviously learn something new. But for me, it was beautiful that that was also something that grounded me in my tradition and grounded me in my experience around Shabbat. And
Mm.
that was very beautiful for me. Like, that's what I mean by finding something that speaks to you. Like, maybe it's lighting Shabbat candles every week and having a moment to yourself to pray and think about your loved ones. Or maybe it's baking bread because you love being in the kitchen and you turn on some Shabbat music. And I always cook with music, it
Yeah.
gets me like in the mood.
Yeah.
And maybe it's that, or maybe it's going out with friends and turning your phone off.
Yeah.
Anything that speaks to you that will feel meaningful, like tap into that, lean into it, and you'll feel closer to your Judaism. You'll feel like it's bringing something to your life that's enriching and meaningful and purposeful. Yeah. I started making sourdough. Love it. I make bread every single week, and I always have chicken soup on. My kids, I'll tell you something else that I,
Yeah.
I also write on my Instagram, and people tell me they do it. I have a beautiful memory of Shabbat.
Yeah.
My memory of Shabbat as a kid is walking into my house on a Friday and smelling it. Smell plays a huge role in our memory. And for me, that smell of Shabbat was very comforting and like very safe. And I know that my memory of it very much like plays into how much I love it now because it was a
Yeah.
beautiful time in my home. My mother was very calm. We spent time with my dad. Like it was a very beautiful time. And the smell of it is part and parcel of my memory. So my kids will walk in now on a Friday and my 2-year-old will be like, Mommy, it smells like Shabbat. They'll literally,
Oh.
and
Love that.
it's so, and these little things we don't realize that were part of our memory that our mothers did. Like we need to put the effort in to do that for our children because that's what they're going to remember. And yeah, it's really cute because she like every Shabbat afternoon, she sits down to sourdough and chicken soup. And obviously the Jewish mother in me like is so happy. And yeah, so I always tell people like Smell and memory is a big thing. Like, make chicken soup on a Friday. Let your kids like experience what Shabbat is and that smell of it. And it's so comforting and homey.
I
So yeah,
love
my
that.
friends tell me they do that all the time now just because they want their house to smell like Shabbat.
I honestly, there is no better smell because you know that Shabbat's coming and,
It,
I don't cook every Shabbat, but I try.
the calm of Shabbat and the peace of what that day is meant to be, like it brings it early. I'm saying it not brings it early. It brings it into your Friday. Like, it kind of
Yeah.
helps build up the space to go into that.
Okay, so Adina's taking us through her famous sourdough. Tell us what we're doing.
And it is 2:30 on a Thursday, sorry. And we have to make a blessing of the bread.
I remember after October 7th, one of the girls that was taken hostage, she was an IDF soldier, and her mom, they showed her mom like praying like with all of her heart and soul with this piece that was she was going to put in the oven, and then like the next week her daughter was released.
Yeah, yeah. So there's 3 mitzvot for women. Um, Lighting Shabbat candles, going to mikvah, and baking bread on a Shabbat before Shabbat. So that's the 3. It's a really big mitzvah, and it brings a lot of blessings to your life and your family. So a lot of women do this every Friday for that, and like there's many miracle stories around it. And I actually took this on after October 7th.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I don't know the prayer that you're supposed to say for this. So you're gonna have to guide me through
Yeah.
this. Okay.
Okay, ready? So we're gonna take a little piece. We're gonna
Okay.
break it. Okay. Baruch
Okay.
atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahafresh challah.
Lahafresh. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. What is it?
Asher
Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu
lahafresh challah.
lahafresh challah.
Yeah. And then you
Okay.
just say Harezo challah. And then usually we pray. I would have like a bunch of like names for like people that are sick that I would say now. And then I also think about the hostages. I think about Chaylim who are fighting and anyone else that like needs blessings. And then I'm going to wrap it up in foil, put it into the oven, and burn it until it's crisp.
Wow. Amen. That's the thing. It's like our tradition, our religion, like there's so much beauty and like
That's it.
yeah.
That's it. There's so much beauty, and we have been blessed with a blueprint to bring us so much meaning and connection in our life. Like, how lucky are we? You know, and
100%.
also that like inherently in our religion is this idea of like tikkun olam and like bettering the world, and also like being there for other people. Even just with this, like it's a beautiful mitzvah, and as we do it, we think of other people. We're constantly being brought back to like the idea of giving back and bettering ourselves and our community. That's like inherent to Judaism. Like that's a beautiful way to live. Like that's the kind of life that I want to live. That brings beauty and meaning. Like I don't, yeah. So we get to tap into that. Like we're so lucky.
And so what do you do? So you put it, do you have to, because obviously you're not baking your bread yet, but like,
so I'm actually going to burn this now. Like I'm
yeah.
right when my sourdough is so sticky today, but I'm going to want to make sure like kind of all gets in there. I'm putting it into the oven. By the way, this is like a cooking class. This is great. I'm just going to turn it on to 400. I'm just going to burn it basically.
So how long do you leave it in for?
I'm just going to leave it in until I'm actually going to do my bread right now in front. You can watch, but we're going to leave it in until it gets under for like an hour on 400.
Yeah. An hour? That seems like a long time.
You want it to like burn. The carb, I think it's because the carbon, like you burn the carbon.
Oh, but does it, the foil just keeps it from like smoking, right? So, is it a matter of like not cooking enough? Wait, how many bowls do you have there? How many things of bread are you making?
I'm going to show you, but I basically I'm going to make 3. So in order to make a blessing, you kind of need to make a certain amount. So I make enough for 3 sourdoughs so I can make a blessing. And yeah, I have enough. I'm going to make 3. So I just need 3 bowls. Basically, I guess sourdough is complicated, but I fed it.
Oh, look, it looks so good. So now what happens?
So now it goes into the fridge.
Yeah.
and I am going to proof it overnight, and then I'll bake it tomorrow just before Shabbat. So my house smells like fresh bread.
So as your daughter says, it smells like Shabbat.
It smells like Shabbat, exactly.
Yeah. So
Oh,
speaking of holidays, so Purim is coming up as well. And I know you said you're not a baker, but are you going to make hamantaschen with your kids?
so I'm not a baker. I'm so bad at it. I usually do like, I'm saying Hanukkah, we make a lot because we always do something around the holidays. So I probably will try to, or maybe I'll ask my chef husband to do it. But from
Is he good at the hamantaschen? He can bake.
he could do it. He probably could.
Okay.
For my kids, around the holiday time, firstly, I always have holiday music. Like the 2 days before, like we're always playing holiday music. I put like balloons up or signs. Like I make the holidays exciting. And like they're all gonna probably get dressed up and give out their little gift bags. So we'll probably make that before. Yeah. And Pesach is coming up after. I feel like it's one
Yeah, one after the other, the next for sure. So what's going in your Mishloach Manot bag? Like, I feel like I have to get some like influencer lifestyle tips from you on this podcast today. Like,
I'll tell you what I did last year. Last year we were Israeli soldiers.
So cute.
My boys dressed up as like it's a Hal uniform with like the Israeli patch. I also did. I felt very appropriate and beautiful for that for last year. And I gave out like beautiful like candles with like a dove like cookie and like a beautiful blue ribbon and like white and blue chocolates.
So nice. You did not make the cookie.
No, I didn't make the cookie. No, I got it all. I got it delivered.
So now that sounds like an amazing gift bag. How are you going to top that?
For Pesach, I'll tell you, I come out Pesach and Rosh Hashanah. I have my own line of decor, my own line of meaningful decor that I come out with every year. I think for me, that's like, I guess, a big part of my brand of like bringing and beautifying our Jewish holidays. Like, so there's usually 3 or 4 items. I have like special quotes on freedom, like all my favorite Jewish writers, like Viktor Frankl. Oh, my favorite quote from Viktor Frankl, my grandfather's one. So that's in there about freedom from Jonathan Sachs. Like a beautiful, like maybe 10 to 12 quotes that you can say around the table that can like spark conversation and really talk about like our Jewish identity and like big, like prolific writers that we've all leaned on and think about freedom and what that means to us as Jewish people. So that's like one thing. And then I do a beautiful Seder like card and like menu cards. So you can follow the Seder and Haggadah bookmark, like little things like that just help bring more meaning to like our holidays and our table and our connections that we have with each other. So
I can't wait to check that out.
That will be coming out.
Yeah. Oh my God. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
It's going to be great. I'm going to have to order one.
Yeah.
Let me know when it's out.
Don't you worry.
No, I can't wait. I'm so excited. No, this was so great. Thank you so much for sitting down and chatting with me today.
Caroline, I feel like we could chat all day. So like anytime, you just let me know.
I said it to you like from the beginning. I was like, we're friends now. Like I'm coming and hanging out.
Yeah. And you let me know when I'm coming to LA.
Yeah, 100%. That's happening for sure. Amazing. Anyone who wants to meet Adina, come to LA. We're going to do it. We're going to do an event together.
Thank you for having me. It's always so lovely to sit down and talk about this stuff. And we go through like the actionable things all the time. And like we're in our day to day and we're going, but to sit down and reflect is very meaningful and reminds us of like why we do everything that we do.
100%.
So, thank you. It's really nice.
Thank you. I'm so, so grateful that you're a part of our family. Thank you so much for everything.
Me too. Thank you, hon.
Thank you for listening to If You Heard What I Heard. If you'd like to learn more about our work and support our mission to make sure the world never forgets, please visit our website